But by the reaction of the disciples, I think this was the worst one they'd ever seen. And in fact, some commentators say this was an attempt on Jesus' life. Who could try and assassinate Jesus with a storm? The enemy, the devil, probably, because he did the 40 days in the wilderness, tempted him those 3 temptations at the end of the 40 days. And now he's like, okay, I'm going to try something else. I'm taking Jesus out with a storm. So some say, it kind of intrigues me, an assassination attempt on Jesus through a storm on the water. I'm okay with that. That makes the story even more exciting. So there's this assassination attempt on Jesus, furious storm, verse 25. Oh no, the end of verse 24. What was Jesus doing? Was he panicking? Was he saying, Father, I'm not supposed to die now in a storm. How could you let this happen to me? This isn't what I thought it was going to turn out. No, he's sleeping. He's got absolute surrender to whatever the Father does in his life. Absolute calm. He's sleeping. Verse 25. The disciples, on the other hand, were not. They were going bananas. The disciples went and woke him, saying, Lord, save us. We're going to drown. Now it's important to note that these disciples at this point, they're demonstrating faith and trust in Jesus. They're saying, we're starting to figure you out, Jesus. We recognize you have authority. We actually think you can help us in this stormy situation. But they didn't really come really calm. They're like, do something. Panic set in. So they're on this end of the faith spectrum, but they just didn't figure a storm into the whole, what they thought their future was going to look like. So they panic. They yell, this is better than not calling out to God. They still call out to God and they say, help us. And if you're at that stage, you're at the beginning stage, you still panic, you still get kind of frustrated, but at least you're asking for help. I'm not putting you down at all. That's a great place to be. Better than just panicking without God and just kind of going over this. You're on the road. So these guys are on the road, they're panicking, but they're still asking for help. Verse 26. Jesus replied, you of little faith. He says, yeah, you're on the spectrum, but where's the calm? Where's the peace? Don't you trust me? Don't you know what I'm capable of? Don't you know I'm not going to let anything happen to you that I don't think is in your best interest? You of little faith, why are you so afraid? Then Jesus got up, rebuked the winds and the waves. He's like, you're not going to assassinate me. Calm. And it was completely calm. And the men were amazed, and they asked, in another version of this story, in Mark or Luke, I think, it says they were afraid. They were kind of scared. It says, what kind of man is this? We underestimated him. Isn't that what we all do? We underestimate God. We don't think he's got our whole day, our whole weekend, our whole afternoon, our whole future, our summer, or our schooling, or our job, or our current conflict with our husband, or wife, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or child, or whatever it is. We don't really remember that God is good. He knows what he's doing, and we can trust him. We can let him do his job. We don't have to panic on his behalf. These guys were like, he's got far more power and authority than we gave him credit for. Look, even the winds and the waves obey him. Why do we settle for just enough God to get us through the storms? We panic, we get frustrated, we start to lose faith, whatever it is. And we want just enough God just to get us out of it. When God's willing to say, put your entire life in my hands, absolute surrender, and you can have absolute calm and peace. Why is it we kind of just settle for this when he's offering this? I think part of it is there's just something to that edgy panic, frustration, where we kind of feel like we have some control. Lana told me I should tell this story to make this point.
Well, you could tell it, I didn't say you should.
But she said it's really important that I tell this story to kind of prove this, make this point. She said she'd been having some physical ailments. And if you ever have physical ailments and you don't know what they are, often you just panic and you just research everything and you start to think, oh, it's this, 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 and this. Lana's smarter than that. She goes, I'm going to the doctor. So she went to the doctor and they said, well, let's take this seriously. Let's do some scans. So did you do a CAT scan or just an MRI? Both. CAT scan, didn't show anything. And then they did the MRI 2 weeks ago. And I don't know if you've ever had an MRI and you're waiting for the results. You're thinking worst case scenario, you're kind of hoping for best case scenario. And so Lana's like, trying to be calm. She's waited a week. She goes, it's a week. I'm calling the doctor to get the result. She called the doctor, and the receptionist said, we're really busy this week. We'll try and slot you in next week. Selena goes, okay, hangs up the phone, goes and has a shower. At that moment, she told me, she had a choice, and she's fully cognizant, recognized this choice. She could, A, know that God is good, He knows what He's doing, I can trust Him, I can just let this go and ride this out, knowing my life is in His hands. And I can just pray for the strength to have that kind of calm and trust. She did it for about half a minute. And she said, forget this, I'm calling that receptionist back. So she calls her back up, and the receptionist says, well, we can fit you in this afternoon. And so she goes in that afternoon, goes and sees the doctor. The doctor says, there's nothing. They say nothing. If there was something, we would have called you. She didn't say this, but kind of the point was, if it's serious, we call you right away. You can trust, the doctor saying, you trust me, I would have called you. And then yesterday, the surgeon, the MRI guy, he calls Lana and says, nothing to worry about. So in that moment, she was trying to edge towards this side, saying, absolute calm. If it's important, they're going to tell me, I can trust God with this, I don't need to panic. A split-second decision, she's over here, she's still crying out for help, but she's, I need to work too. And there's this, that's why we kind of do it, there's this little edge, this little bit of control, this little bit of, I could just kind of let God's preferred vision of a future happen. Doesn't mean you just sit around waiting for Him to do, that you do absolutely nothing. Because Lana did something, she made the first call. Are you getting the point here? Where most of our lives were spent here, and Jesus is calling us over here. He's saying, just trust me, it's going to work out. In this case, it would have worked out. If he was serious, they would have called, and Dr. Foti did call on the weekend. God is good. He knows what He's doing. We can trust Him. Let Him do His job. If any of you ever had a job where you work with other people, and they give you a job to do this, okay, you're going to be like closing and everything, I'm going home. But then they come at closing and then they close for you. Like, you already showed me how to do it. You told me I had the authority to do it, and then you come in anyway. Don't you trust me? God's saying, let me do my job. I'll take care of you. Yeah, your weekend might go sour, your evening might go sour, your sleep might go sour, your children might go sour. That's little things. Big things might go sour. But you don't have to panic and give up on me and absolute trust always equals absolute calm and absolute peace. So what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to make some time for prayer when you go home, or maybe this evening. Get home, close the door, get on your knees, talk aloud and say, God, here's my preferred future. My family, my job, my day, my evening. Make this a daily prayer. Say, I'm willing to allow you to do your preferred future. What is it? If you don't show me, the answer is yes anyway. I am submitting to your vision of a preferred future for my life, for my weekend, for my day, for this service. Like every Sunday morning, I go through this process again. Lord, whatever happens, I've done everything I can do to see your preferred future happen. If it doesn't go that way, it means you have a different preferred future in mind. But just take some time, talk out loud to the Lord and say, Lord, what's your vision of a preferred future for my job? Some of you are like in between jobs, are you dreaming of a better job? Say, Lord, what's your preferred vision for that? I'll submit to it. Some of you are like planning families, or you building families. Say, Lord, here's mine, but what's yours? I'll submit to it. Show me what it is. Some of us are in ministry, like what's my area of gifting? What should I be doing? This church, what's kind of your calling for our church? What's your vision of a preferred future for this church? And we say, Lord, whatever it is, just show us. And we'll do it. We're tired of just fitting you into our preferred plan. We want to fit ourselves into your preferred plan. God is good. He knows what He's doing, and we can trust Him. Let Him do His job.